Welcome to episode 355 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer, producer, director, and also actor Miska Kajanus. He did a low-budget feature film called Insanity, so he comes on to talk about that project today. He's from Finland and came to the USA to pursue his dream of being an actor. He's actually worked his way up as an actor and has had a number of roles on shows like Modern Family, and now he's moving into filmmaking as a whole and trying to make his own film. So that'll be a lot of the focus of what we talk about today. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast. And then just look for episode number 355. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Again, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So a quick few words about what I'm working on. We're still moving along with my mystery thriller feature film, The Rideshare Killer. We officially locked picture last week. I'm picking up the hard drives from my editor this weekend to take over to our sound team and colorist. There's quite a bit of prep work that the editor needs to do before he sends the film over to the color and sound folks. All of these things, these people operate on different programs. Adobe Premiere, DaVinci Resolve is the color program. There's a whole bunch of different programs he uses for the sound. So all these things have to be synced up. The editor has to do a bunch of different outputs. And frankly, I'm not even all that technical that I even know, frankly, a lot of what goes in with syncing all this stuff up. But hopefully these guys do, and hopefully it will all come together. But in any event, that is definitely moving along. And as I said, I'm going to be picking up the drives this weekend. So that's exciting news. We're still trying to get the film completed by the end of this year, but we'll see. I think there's still a good chance. If we're not done by the end of this year, it won't be short. It will be very, very shortly after in January, I would think we'll be done. So it's definitely moving along. The other big thing, obviously, I've been working on the screenwriting contest. We announced the finalist a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be announcing the winner this Wednesday, November 18th. I'll be posting it on sellingyourscreenplay.com the morning of the 18th. So just keep an eye out for that announcement. The other big thing I'm trying to do is get my next feature film going, and I've been talking a little bit about this on the podcast. I've got a very loose commitment on a film noir script that I wrote, but the problem now is just the longer it goes, the less confident I am that will actually pan out. If we could go shoot, tomorrow, I think we would be shooting, but obviously with COVID, it's just a little bit dicey. With COVID, I'm just thinking a low budget feature is just asking for a lot of headaches. And that's kind of my hesitation. It'll be tough to shoot this film with the money we have under the best conditions. But if we have to shut down production for a few weeks, it could destroy the production. If one of our leads gets sick and has to be quarantined for 2 weeks, I mean, obviously then other crew members could potentially get sick and we would have to, quarantine for longer. And on these low budget productions, there's no margin for error. We don't have a big bankroll behind us. If we have to close down production for 2 weeks, I think it would be almost catastrophic for a really low budget production. And when I say catastrophic, obviously we would get the movie done, but it would really start to impede on the quality of the film because we don't have any more money. There's no contingency plan in terms of the financing of this thing. So, and I think most, independent filmmakers are probably in that boat. That's kind of some of the gist I get talking to other filmmakers, other producers, other directors. It's just a tough road to hoe. There's just not enough margin for error on these feature films. So originally I was kind of hoping next March, by March, things would be clearing up. Now we're, less than 6 months away from that. And it doesn't seem like March is going to be a lot better than it is now. Hopefully it will be at least head in the right direction. So I don't know. I'm kind of just hedging my bet a little bit. I've been enjoying working on the Rideshare Killer this year, so I'm really hoping I can keep that momentum going. And as I said, especially now that I'm closing in on completing the Rideshare Killer, I'd like to just find a next project. and really hoping that that this film noir script would be it. I've sort of been thinking too, maybe I could do a short film. I think a short film would be something I could shoot and really do. I would do probably the whole thing myself. And this, in a case of a short film, I would probably edit it myself just to kind of get that experience. I could shoot something in 1 or 2 days, basically just me, a camera, and a couple actors. Something at that level where COVID really wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, we could social distance and wear masks if the crew was small enough, and shoot it, in a very contained area, maybe at a park or even if it's inside. Again, just making sure we social distance and masks. And there's a whole protocol that I've heard from some other producers. You can go through shooting here in LA, and you can get permits now. Like you can get permits to shoot in LA, and I know there's some production going on. I definitely talked to some of my actor friends and different people that work in the business, and there's definitely some shooting going on, but it's just tough. And as I said, it's even tougher for the independent films. So I don't know. I think I'm kind of in a holding pattern, finish up RSK, and then kind of see maybe in November, December, see if there's not a little bit more hopeful news. Maybe if we get a vaccine, that will definitely start to change the trajectory of all of this. So anyways, not really great news for any of us with COVID. I know we're all just under this sort of umbrella waiting for it to lift, and hopefully it will lift soon. Anyways, that's the main things that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks. Now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer, producer, director, and also actor Miska Kajanus. Here is the interview. Welcome, Miska, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be on the show because I've been listening to this for like a couple of years already. Usually when I go hiking on Running Canyon or somewhere, I listen to your podcast. I'm a big fan.
Well, perfect. I appreciate that. So let's dig into the interview. Maybe to start out, you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I'm originally from Finland, but I've been in Los Angeles for 5 years now. So I started playing guitar when I was 13. Before that, I did sports, and then I played in bands and started to do theater. And that was pretty much when I was 13, it was all the way to theater and movies.
I gotcha. And so talk about some of those, turning it into an actual career. At some point you made the leap from Finland to Los Angeles. Maybe you can talk about that. How did you go? Did you know people in Los Angeles? Did you save a bunch of money so that you had a little nest egg once you got here? Maybe talk about that transition. I know there's lots of people that listen to this internationally, even within the United States, that have a long journey to LA. So maybe you can give us some insight there. How did you happen to move to Los Angeles? How did you get through all that?
Well, after high school in Finland, I was in a soap opera for a few months, and then I applied to Finnish Theatre Academy, but I didn't get in. So I thought that I started to look for options abroad, and I thought about London, but then I found this school in Miami, New World School of the Arts. It's part of University of Florida, and I just applied to New World School of the Arts, and I got a small scholarship, and I decided that I'll just go to this random theater school in Miami because it sounded great and I have heard very good things about it.
Mm-hmm. So perfect. And then once you got done college, what was your major in college? You were a theater major? Did you do some short films? Maybe talk about a little bit of that experience.
My major was acting, and there was actually not much acting for camera. There was a little bit. So I had worked on short films, but mainly acted on stage.
Okay. And then how did you make the transition out to Los Angeles from Miami?
Well, this is actually my second time coming to LA because I graduated 2005 and I got 1 year visa. So I moved to LA for 1 year, but then the visa ran out. So I needed to go back to Finland for 10 years. So, and then now I have a green card. So I actually won green card in the green card lottery.
Oh, okay.
It's for everyone in the world, and I applied to that for like 6 years, and then I got the green card, and then I came back because I'm now able to be here and legally work here, and I'm very happy to be back.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so maybe just a couple practical tips for people moving to Los Angeles. Where would you recommend if someone doesn't know anything about LA, they're going to move here from a far away distance, where in Los Angeles would you recommend that they go?
Well, I live right in the middle of Hollywood, and that works for me because I didn't have a car in the beginning, and I like to live close to places where I go because I do some comedy. Before COVID, I used to go to comedy clubs, do open mics and stuff. So that works for me. the central location, but I've heard that many people like living in the valley where it's definitely more peaceful. Like it's
Yeah.
lots of homeless people here in Hollywood, so it's not that nice.
Yeah, yeah. And the other big difference between Hollywood and even North Hollywood, just, 8 miles north, is the price. Things are a lot cheaper in the valley. So if you're on a budget, I would say, and you're moving to the LA area, definitely look in the valley first, because that will be your cheapest opportunities to find a place.
I agree. I think one of the biggest surprises moving to LA was the price and then also the commute. So you want to live not too far away from the places where you go. And there's
Sure.
lots of studios in the valley.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so you stumble into LA, I guess a number of years ago, and you on
5 years ago.
IMDb. Okay, 5 years ago, and on IMDb you have a number of decent acting credits. Maybe talk about that. Once you got to LA, how did you start to build your resume? How did you start to build your career? Did you get an agent? Did you have an agent before you got here? Maybe just talk about that journey, getting some of these speaking roles on TV shows and stuff.
Well, you need to really be humble and start from the bottom. I joined a couple of websites, LA Casting and Actors Access, and you upload your information and you start submitting yourself to all the productions that they have. Then I started approaching agents, and I got a recommendation from a friend of mine to my agent. My agent is Victor Kruglov. And since I had some TV credits from Finland, I had a nice acting reel. And then I also did some background work, which was great because you get to be on set and you actually get to get some money. So I think the main thing is to do everything you can in the field of entertainment, accept all the jobs and approach people. But agents are especially, I don't know how it works in CAA and all the top level agencies, but the regular agents, they're actually really nice. They usually read your email and you are able to at least be in contact with agent. But you need to have a reel, so and you
Yeah,
will get
yeah.
that doing the small production.
Sure, sure. That's good advice. Tell me a little bit about extra work. When I rolled in here in the mid 90s, I actually did some extra work. And back then, it was in Burbank. There was a place called Central Casting, Cenix Casting. You just went down there, you got registered with them. And then back then, it was a phone line you would call and get the jobs. But it was fairly easy to get some of these extra jobs. And I totally agree with you. For someone who grew up in Maryland, never had been really even on a movie set, it was great experience to just make a few bucks and get on a movie set. How does it work nowadays with the extra casting?
Well, basically it's the same thing. The only thing is that there's no more phone lines, but you can check all the casting postings online or on Facebook. So it's much
Gotcha.
nicer because I remember you used to need to call there all the time.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah, yeah.
recommend there, and you don't even need to have an acting resume. Like my mom could go to Central Casting, she would probably get cast. You just need to be a person.
Yeah, 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 and understand that. Okay, so let's talk about your latest film, the feature film Insanity. Kind of bring us up to speed on that. So you're in LA, you're working, and then had you started writing at some point? And when did you decide that you wanted to write and direct and produce a feature?
I had directed a web series called Helsinki Boulevard. It's on YouTube. So I had directed smaller things, but listening all these filmmaking podcasts and just being in LA, I realized that it really makes sense to do a feature instead of 5 shorts. So I had this idea about the film, and I just called this film has been filmed in Finland, and we shot the first shot 4 years ago in 2016. So I just started to write. I started writing, and I called some of my friends, and we just got together in a real indie style, and we went to a cabin for a couple of weeks and started working from there.
In terms of the actual writing of the script in this cabin, or in terms of the shooting?
Oh, I was already in the shooting, but yeah. So
Gotcha,
about the
gotcha.
script, should I tell about that?
Yeah, yeah. So let's take a step back. So maybe to start out with Insanity, just give us sort of a picture log line. What is the premise of this movie?
5 classmates go to an island, and their old grudges start coming on surface, and they start fighting and talking about the old stuff that happened in school, and they go crazier and crazier in the island.
And where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of it?
Well, it actually happened. I met an old friend of mine who had been in a in a class reunion, and he said that when he was in in his class, it was 20 years ago, but he was still bitter to the guy who was the bully in the school. And my friend said that he had been studying karate, that if he's gonna start the same in the class reunion, now this time he's gonna beat him up after like 20 years. So that felt like I felt really strongly about that. So that stayed in my mind for years. And at the same time, I had an idea about this. Well, you know the show Big Brother.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So about these young people who would go to a cabin and film everything and just decide that they're going to film everything. So it was a combination of those ideas. I think the heart of the story is the bullying story, but then there's also the story about people who go into a cabin and want to film everything that happens there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you had done a bunch of shorts before doing this feature. What are some of the lessons you learned doing this short before you took on this feature? Just some big lessons for people to really understand. If they've done a short or two, what is that next step for them?
Well, the main lesson for me was to ask help and ask from people who are better than you, like about the editing, about the lights, because you truly can produce and direct film even though you don't have much experience if you have good people around you. But you really need to be humble and ask people who are more capable than you.
Yeah. So how did you build this network of people that were willing and able to come and help you with this movie? Just living in LA, doing acting work, getting to know people. Maybe talk about that a little bit. Who are these people and how did you get to know them?
So there's definitely there's like two lines, because this film is totally filmed in Finland with the Finnish actors. So those were the people who I had met in Finland working in the indie scene and even the professional music industry. And of course, now I have a dream to do a film in America. So I would start contacting the people who I have met in all the previous jobs. If you do extra work, if you do indie films, you meet people. And those are the people who it's easy to work with in the future.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about your writing process a little bit, and we can talk specifically about Insanity. Where did you write this? Are you one of the people that goes to a Starbucks and writes? Do you write at a home office? Do you write in the middle of the night? Do you write early in the morning? What does just sort of your writing routine look like?
Well, my writing routine is now that I do it at home in peace. But for that, I just went to Starbucks. I went to Rainbow Bar and Grill on Sunset Strip. Because I had sort of a deadline with this film, because I'd been thinking about it for a long time, but then I got some people who wanted to help me with crowdfunding. So they said that we're going to start the campaign in like 2 months or so. I needed that. Now, the story that I had for a long time, I needed to realize that I needed to write it. So I left my house in LA and I went to cafes or restaurants and I just started writing. Mm-hmm. And with the deadline, you really just need to go forward. But the writing process was that I think it was about 30-page scene list or like an outline, and we used that as a basis for the film. So it wasn't the full script. So most of the lines that actors did were improvised. Huh. So I had about this 30-page, the full story of the film and scene list, and that's the way we started filming.
I gotcha. And so how do you work as a director and a writer too? How do you work with the actors? You set up a scene, you know roughly, okay, this person's going to be mad at this person. And then you talk to the actors and they improvise. Did you have to audition them? Do you do improvisation during the audition? How does this sort of the physical process work of doing that?
Well, we did improvisation in the auditions. And I have also done lots of improv as an actor. I think that's like one of the dearest things. So I'm very familiar with improv and I love it. But the big thing with this film is that none of the actors had read the script. They only know where their characters were coming from. So they didn't even know like who was going to be the killer. They just had lots of strong backstory. So I wanted to really have an authentic feeling in each of the scenes. So that was the way we did it. So before the scene, I said that, okay, in this scene, you guys need to go to sauna. And you're bitter to this guy about what he did in the school, so please bring it up. And the other guy, I told him that tease him a little bit throughout the whole scene. And I just let's see what happens.
Gotcha. And so it seems to me something like that, you're going to run a lot of footage. So you're going to make some of this writing up, you're going to make it up in the editing suite, and you're just going to shoot a ton of stuff. Is that sort of the gist of it? You shoot a ton of stuff and then try and get what you need from that?
Yeah, yes, that's a big part of it. But we were also in a pretty tight schedule, so there's few takes of each scene. But I think the weirdest thing was that actors started offering. Okay, I guess I can say this, that originally when I wrote this film was not supernatural. But when actors started offering that there's something here in this island, the ideas were like so good that I decided to follow their ideas. So I made some modifications throughout the filming process, and the whole story actually changed quite a lot. So I don't know if it was smart, but it definitely made the process more creative and lots more work in the editing bay. But we also had some additional shoots too, since the story had changed quite a lot.
Perfect. Okay, so you mentioned that you had a group of people that wanted to get this crowdfunding underway. Who were those people, and how did you meet those folks?
Well, that really didn't like happen. Well, we started the campaign, but I think the whole group realized that it would have taken so much effort and time that we just decided to cut it short. Those were people who were working in the business field, and they wanted to learn about crowdfunding. And I think we all learned about it, and we just decided that it made more sense for me to use my time for pre-production, like a month and a half before shooting, instead of crowdfunding, if we wanted a good film. So we cut it short.
Gotcha.
But I went there, I actually met them when I was doing a hosting gig in Finland in a business event. And I went them, we stayed in contact, and they said that they want to do crowdfunding. So you can really meet nice and useful people in all the events.
Gotcha. So, okay, so then that falls through. What was your next path to getting some funding and getting this thing into production?
Well, we were pretty safe because since the beginning, the way we funded is that all the actors and all the crew got like the little cut of they owned part of the film. So everyone worked most of the people worked for free. And basically all the expenses was some gear rental, some props, and some food. So I paid for that myself.
Gotcha.
So we were safe since from the beginning, so there was not much risk. And still there's not much risk, only some personal money, but not much.
Gotcha. And I want to go back on one thing you mentioned earlier in the interview, just a quick little side. You mentioned you had done some soap operas in Finland. How did you get those gigs? Is it the same sort of process in the US? You get an agent, you get submitted, you do auditions and hope you get picked. What is that process like in Finland? Just getting cast on a soap opera?
It's similar, but there's not many agents. There's just a couple of agents. So I moved to the capital city of Finland, and I started sending my resumes and photos to actual production companies. And many of the production companies do casting in-house, or they have some casting agents. So I just started sending out stuff. And to the soap opera, first I did extra work for them, like a couple of days. Then they invited me to do one part with one line. And then like a month after that, they said that, okay, we have a bigger part for you. Would you like to come? So really just sending out your stuff, that's the way it has been for me for my whole life.
Yeah. So back to Insanity. So once you finish the film, you get it edited. What were your next steps? Did you do a big film festival run? Did you go to distributors? Did you go, I think you in the email you mentioned it was on Amazon Prime. Just talk about that. What did you actually do with the film once you got it done?
Well, when we were doing the post-production, I started working with the Finnish distributor, Black Lion Pictures. So we secured a small theatrical run in Finland and the whole Finnish release. But in America, I started sending it to festivals, mainly actually LA festivals, because I don't have that much money to like go around the world, around the country. So we got to Marina del Rey Film Festival, which was great. So we got a theatrical showing there and a couple of other festivals here in LA area. And after the Finnish theatrical release, which was Valentine's Day 2020, I started just sending my packages to different distribution companies in America. And if you have a genre film, you will get replies. Like there's lots of distribution companies that are interested in horror films. So I was actually able to do a little bit of research and choose the best one that was best for me. It's a Bayview Entertainment.
Gotcha. And how many distributors did you submit to? I'm just kind of curious about just sort of what your hit rate is when you send in something like this, sort of a low budget horror movie. How much of a response rate can you expect from distributors?
I think I sent to 15 and got replies from, I think I got 4 offers.
Okay, perfect.
With genre films, I think it's quite easier.
Gotcha. So what are you working on next? What's going to be your next project?
Well, I would like to shoot. You have shot the film Pinch, which I saw last night. So nice. I think that has many same kind of qualities that I want to do next, which is a low budget film that can be shot in LA with limited locations. And I don't know how quickly you shot it, but I guess it wasn't too many. How many days?
17 days. Yeah, we had a 17-day shoot.
Yeah, so something like that. I basically would just like to go out with my friends to the Hollywood street and shoot a film with lots of improvising, but also like of course that we have a script, but lots of improvising. Mm-hmm. We actually have shot one film in America. It's not out in America yet, but it's called Someone Somewhere. I am a producer and I was one of the writers and I acting that. So it's about the people who live in Hollywood but who don't make it. So it tries a tragic comedy. I play a failed Finnish stand-up comedian. But I didn't direct it, but it was shot in a way that the guys, directors Hannu Aukia and Jaakko Manninen, they red camera and we went to Hollywood streets and we filmed it. So something like that, and I would like to start shooting as soon as possible because now this release has been done.
Yeah, but sure. So I'm curious with Insanity. You shot it in Finland. All the people were speaking Finnish, so it's not an English language movie, correct?
Yes. There's a couple of English lines, but yeah, it's Finnish.
Gotcha. And so was that an issue with distributors? Did you get any pushback from distributors just that it wasn't English language?
Yeah, it's definitely a negative thing for distributors.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So next time, American film, hopefully with some celebrities.
Perfect. I always like to just end the interviews by getting my guests to talk about some of the things they've seen. Are there any films on Netflix, HBO, Hulu, anything that you've seen recently that you would recommend, especially to a screenwriting crowd like the listeners of this podcast?
Well, something that has touched me a lot, I don't know about screenwriting, but Love on the Spectrum. I don't know if you have seen the series called Love on the Spectrum.
I have not, but I have heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about people who have Asperger's or autism, and it's a sort of a reality show, but it really touched me. There's like certain kind of honesty that it's really difficult to see even in fiction.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's definitely one worth checking out. How can people see Insanity? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like or where it's available?
For America, Canada, we're available on Vimeo on demand and Amazon. You can rent it on Amazon. And in Britain, it's only Vimeo on demand. And we have a DVD coming out in November. And then I need to start selling the rest of the world, which is going to be a whole adventure in itself.
Yep. Gotcha. What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Facebook, Twitter, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll round up for the show notes.
Well, I'm in all social media with my own name, Miska Kajanus. Or the film is on all social media, Insanity, the film. Can I actually add one thing? So
yeah, sure.
With the new film that I'm writing a new film, but I'm also open to finding a new script. Something that could be shot in LA with low budget. And I've been selling your screenplay service as a producer. And there has been some good ones there. So reading a script is a big thing, but I'm interested to hear log lines if people have something that could be shot in LA pretty easily.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you don't mind, you can say your email address now, and I'll put your email address in the show notes so people can actually contact you directly. That's great. I'm sure lots of people will reach out to you.
Nice. Well, it's my first and last name at gmail.com. Miska Kajanus. Should I spell it?
No, I think people will be able to look it up. Yeah, they'll be able to find you at gmail.com. Perfect. And just to be clear, you want really low budget scripts that could be shot in Los Angeles.
Hopefully,
That's the key.
hopefully in a couple of weeks. 4 weeks is
weeks.
quite a long stretch, so like small.
Gotcha. So, well, perfect. Yeah, I'm sure you'll definitely get some submissions on that. Well, Miska, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Congratulations finishing your first film, and I look forward to seeing what you produce in the future.
Thank you. I'm a big fan.
Well, thank you.
Thanks.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing Tyler Taormino, who wrote and directed a cool coming-of-age film called Ham and Rye. He talks through the process of writing the script and how he was able to get it produced. Hint, he just made things happen for himself. So he'll give us his story next week. So keep an eye out for that episode. Thanks for listening. We'll hopefully see you next week.